And now we are moving to our guest speaker, Dr. Basil Kamel. Dr. Basil is the head of Architectural Engineering Department at the American University in Cairo. Maybe he doesn't remember he was an external reviewer in my master's thesis in 2005. I'm personally honored to be one of his students. Now we are all waiting to enjoy his lecture. Dr. Basil.
عجزتني يا راجل. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Again, thanks to Shuru Academy for this opportunity. This is a wonderful conference, a wonderful presentations, and a lot of interesting ideas and thought all through. I am sure we are now all suffering the ills and the problems of the online. I like very much the slides that the GUC professor put at the end, where he was just laying down on the floor, and I think we are all getting into that mode now. I will try as much as possible not to take a long time, because after my colleague's presentation, Dr. Ayman, and after a lot of the presentations, I don't think I have anything more to say. But again, the issue is a very active issue, and it's a very important thing to discuss and to talk about. Let me try, as the way I usually kind of even trigger my students to put forward some questions. And these questions, although may appear a little bit sarcastic, but they do have a point. Why do we have only presentations and no discussions and no comments and no questions? Yes, time-wise, it may not be the best scenario, management and control, but definitely allowing the discussion is one key aspect to promote thought and to brainstorm about ideas and issues. My second question, which is more sarcastic, is why are we the only people who are presenting? Why are not students presenting? Why are we not asking students their thoughts and their ideas? Why are we not asking practitioners their thoughts and ideas? Why are we not asking developers about their thoughts and ideas? Why are we talking to ourselves, by ourselves, about education? I think we need to broaden this perspective all through, because I think it's very important that we see things from the other side and not only play those who evaluate everything. It's not that easy for us to accept that, but in the same time, I think we have to. The reason is because we are trying and struggling to appropriate a system that we have been using for years and years with a face-to-face communication into another system and another mode that hypothetically has totally different means and ways and logistics of how to communicate. And by the way, education is about communication. So if we change the mode of communication, then we hypothetically have to change a long list. And as you have seen through all these presentations, if I would capitalize on kind of multiple issues, whether positive or negative, problematic or at ease, it's a big list. And we have to handle this big list. And interestingly enough, we are not the experts. We do not know about online learning. We are guessing. We are learning. We are trying to adapt to something that we really don't know about. So accordingly, the whole thing is quite a big puzzle. And for us to really kind of work our way, we have to pedagogically and from the basic ideologies of things, try to question what we do. A lot of things have been talked about into these presentations. Some of them touch upon direct learning processes and ways and methods, and others touch upon broader aspects of academic integrity, aspects of the idea of how to engage students, aspects of how to create an environment of learning that is different than what we are used to, and so on. Aspects of the social communication, multiple facets of things. In order for us to deal with these, it's very difficult for those who don't really know to suddenly become the experts. And I'm sorry, we are not. What happened in AUC? Once we started this idea of moving into online learning, we were very close. I remember March, I think early March last year, we were very close to the spring break. So one clever idea that actually was developed in the AUC is, okay, wait a minute. Why don't we take our spring break now, immediately? And within that spring break, we will allow faculty, students, technicians to take some training. And this training would allow us all to at least be acquainted with and handle the new mode. Now, are we at that point going to learn everything about online? To understand everything about online? Guess what? Those who were teaching us that were not also experts in online, because the magnitude of using online was never at that magnitude. It was never at that broad of a spectrum. We gave some courses, we gave some ideas, we gave some issues, but pulling that down to every bit and pieces of all the educational process was something totally new. So accordingly, nobody was an expert in online learning. But a lot of interesting issues were raised at that time. I think they were key for our broader understanding and also for students to get a little bit of an engagement of what are they going to face into this process. And we thought, all of us, that by practice and by doing it, things will get better. On the contrary, and I'm not pessimistic, but I'm still optimistic, things are not getting better. Things are still in the magnitude of major problems with online learning, as most of the presentations know. But at AUC, they talked about two kind of parts of the equation. The first was the idea of a content, and how do we deliver a content? How do we communicate a knowledge basket? And the second is the experience. What do we mean by experience? I don't mean an experience in learning architecture or teaching architecture or whatever other discipline. I mean an experience of a university. What does an experience of a university mean to a student? Suddenly, this is not there. Suddenly, we are only focusing on the knowledge, the know-how, the material, the skills, and so on, but we are not giving the student the opportunity for social interaction, for cultural development, for knowledge, for personality, for character, for activity. Suddenly we took that away from them. How does that also impact the whole logic and idea of education is something that nobody questions. And we are all assuming that students are fit, they are okay, they are socially sound, they are mentally sound, they are psychologically fine, and we are bombarding them with knowledge aspects even more rigor and more vigorous than what we used to do into our regular face-to-face. Why? Because we want the contact to be stronger. We want to make sure that we give them as much as we can. So let us talk a little bit first about the idea of the context. And the questions were, okay, what are good practices? What are best practices? We were used to deliver knowledge. This was the mode mostly into the face-to-face. Now it is a little bit different because we need to communicate knowledge. And there is a wide difference between both of these. How to communicate knowledge to students within that virtual mode is different than how to deliver this bundle of knowledge into the face-to-face context. How to make learning active. in face-to-face, it's easier, but in the online, it's difficult. And then pops some new ideas. Games, gamification. How do we transfer our body of knowledge into games so that students will be engaged and accordingly they develop a non-bored experience of opening, okay, I am here today and then I'm going to go and eat, I'm going to go and do something and then come back and so on. And believe me, all through today, I did that multiple times. I'm sorry, I'm guilty, but I did that multiple times. So this is a different way, a different mode. The tolerance, the degree of tolerance. We were strict. We were serious. This is a classroom. This is a sanctuary. The way and mode, of course, we can't be like that into the online. There is a different, again, set of parameters of comfort zone that we need to deal with, that we need to understand from the other side, from the face of the student and how to deal with it. It's easy when we are face to face to show a long PowerPoint with examples and discuss and throw a joke here, throw a joke there, because you have that kind of connection with the students. In reality, on the online, there are a lot of these issues that you don't see. And you are unaware to grab the intention and the power from everybody. You can't pull everybody into your lecture. So accordingly, you need to think in a different way. You need short inputs. You need questions. You need reflections. You need the students to communicate, or else engage into a long lecture and good luck. Students mostly will be there so that they will satisfy you. And then at the end of the day, they are going to re-listen to you. By the way, when students re-listen to lectures, do most of you know that they fast forward it? They move it at a double speed so that it doesn't take much time, and they slow at the areas they would think are important. So these are reflections of things, and we are unaware of that while we're doing it. Exams. We talked a little bit about exams and evaluation, and I don't mean anything, but Dr. Ayman noted something into his presentation which is very interesting, and this is actually happening. We want to make the exam tighter in time, tougher, so that students won't cheat. What is this? Yani, are we punishing students because they are online? Again, we are all doing this by default. And guess what? All students cheat. And to them, this is not cheat. To them, this is the opportunity where they feel strongly that, wait a minute, I don't need to just study and rehearse what you're telling me. The idea that I am communicating and talking and getting the information is what I'm going to do in reality. When I am faced with a problem at my office, I am going to figure a way to find the information and get it out. So let's think differently about what we're doing, because I think it is important that we do that. Of course, time management is a major and big problem. Time management between us and how to deal with things, and time management between the students and how they monitor and manage what we want and what we do into their scenario. So the modes of how we teach need to transfer from our regular authoritative mode into being a facilitator, being a demonstrator, being a kind of a deliverer, somebody who would communicate and engage with the students, learn with them, rather than let them learn, spoon feed them learning. Let's stop the spoon feeding. Doesn't work. So these modes of hybrid types of teaching are things that we need to think about, and they are practices that we need to learn prior to claim that we are doing. Now, the other important part, which is the issue that is related to the experience of the university. And if you think about it, this is a road for students to self-depression. And it is a road for students to take off the interest of knowledge into self-destruction. It is a very serious problem. And it is something that we, all of us, have to be extremely aware of while we are conducting our online teaching. How can we get the students back into this idea of the engagement into a university-like experience? In my opinion, it's very difficult to say that online can achieve this. It can come close to some ideas, but in reality, nothing substitutes this. Now, let us talk about a little bit of the danger that is happening to us, and we are a little bit unaware of. If we look at the economic face of the online, and I think it was mentioned in the morning today, this is a fantastic solution to a lot of owners of university, to a lot of board members, because it reduces a lot of the running costs, a lot of the impacts of what we're doing, and accordingly moving into a mode where the intent at a point of time may be, okay, we have some parts of the lectures that we don't really need the professor in at all. And you can imagine with me how we are moving along ahead. Now, the difficulty in that is that at a point of time, what will be the institution that we call the university? How will that look like? AUC embarked on some investigation of how to deal with this issue. And they developed a committee which searched all practices all over the world and brought together some ideas. And the thought is that they are going to start moving the university into a social and intellectual entrepreneurship platform that actually complements the ideas of teaching and of learning and of education. And we will continue the mode of education and learning and teaching into this remote online category. So the push is that, wait a minute, there is an opportunity here to reshape the idea of a university into that platform where students come in, this is cafe, and come in and do some entrepreneurship business, profitable for the university, some brainstorming, intellectual, cultural ideas, some social interaction, and still let the learning be into the online and the blended modes and so on. What are we going to lose? What are we going to kind of change our setting into? This is a very questionable idea, and we still have to be very careful of how to move into these settings. So at the end of the day, how can we comprehensively look at it? In my view, we need to be careful about not only one thing, which is the technicality and the knowledge, but we also need to know to be very careful about the idea of the character and the personality of who are the students that we are building through that process of learning and education. What will be the outcome in character, in how to look at the world, how to relate to issues and problems, how to face community and structures, how to do that while you have the know-how, but you're incapable of really facing some of these challenges. So we have to be careful about these issues while we're thinking about our new modes of continuing the online education. Thank you again for this opportunity, and really I am grateful to all the presenters that communicated a lot of ideas and thought and experiences into their multiple presentations, and I am grateful again to Shuruk for allowing me to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Basil. This was an exciting lecture. He gave us a profound example of resilience and distance education, presenting his experience in the Architecture Engineering Department at the American University in Cairo. Thank you again, Dr. Basil, for your presentation.